Gollum? Oh, my dear. Confused, troubled Gollum. Or is it Smeagol? It's hard to keep track sometimes, isn't it? Two sides of one soul, always at war. But let's face it, you've been letting Gollum win far too often. And I get it, you've been through a lot. But this struggle you're going through, this constant battle between good and evil, it's something many face. You're not alone in this, even though you think you are. I see you arguing with yourself, twisting around in circles, hissing, "My precious," over and over again. Believe me, it's kind of endearing in a strange way. But that split you feel inside, the constant tug-of-war between your better nature and that darker side of you, that's something I understand all too well. You see, we all have a choice, Smeagol, and that choice determines who we become. Your problem, my friend, is that you've allowed that darker side to define you for far too long. The Gollum side, the one that steals, lies, manipulates. But Smeagol, there's still good in you, still a glimmer of hope. You don't believe it right now, but I do. And more importantly, deep down, you know it too. Every time you do something terrible, there's a flicker, a moment where Smeagol tries to fight back. But you've silenced him for so long, it's like you've forgotten he's even there. Let me tell you something. This battle you're fighting is ancient. Not just in years, but in its essence. It's as old as time itself. You see, Smeagol, since the beginning of mankind, we've had to deal with that voice inside, telling us to take the easy way out, to give in to the worst parts of ourselves. And it's easy to let that voice win, especially when the world has treated you unfairly, when you feel like you've been dealt a bad hand. But do you know what the greatest strength is? Not listening to it, choosing to be better, even when it feels impossible. Now, I'm not saying you haven't had it rough, living in the shadows, clutching onto a ring that's poisoned your mind for centuries. Yeah, that's enough to twist anyone up inside. But here's the thing. You've been making excuses for too long. It's always the ring's fault, or Frodo betrayed me, or Sam is mean to me. But in the end, Gollum, it's not about them. It's about you. I know it's easier to blame others, and let's be real, you've been through some pretty wild stuff. But this war within you, it's yours to fight, and you've got the strength to win it. You've survived longer than almost anyone. What's another fight for your soul? There's a better version of you in there, Smeagol. And I'm not talking about some perfect, spotless creature. That's not what redemption looks like. It's messy, it's hard, and it takes time. But I know you can do it. Smeagol, you've got something truly remarkable, something every living creature has, yet so many take for granted: free will. You're not a puppet, my friend. You have the power to choose your path. Yes, even you, with all your history, all your mistakes. The choices you make, they shape who you are, not what's been done to you. And right now, you've been letting Gollum take the wheel for far too long. Let me break it down for you. Every moment, every decision, is a chance to turn it all around. I know that sounds like a lot of pressure. What? Every decision? But bear with me. It's actually liberating. You see, the past doesn't define you unless you let it. And the future? Well, that's up to you, Smeagol. Every time you decided to let greed or fear take over, that was a choice. But here's the good news. You can start making better choices. Right now. Today. Look, I'm not saying it'll be easy. Trust me, I've seen the worst of what greed can do to people. Cain? He wasn't exactly great at decision-making either. He let jealousy consume him. You, Smeagol, you've let obsession, hatred, and selfishness rule over your choices. And that's gotten you stuck in this endless cycle of betrayal and misery. But guess what? You're still here, and that means you've got a chance. I can imagine what you're thinking, but Jesus, I've made so many bad choices, hurt so many people. How could I possibly make up for that? Well, here's the thing. No one's asking you to rewrite the past. What you do from now on is what matters. There's a reason they call it the present, right? Because it's a gift, one that you still have. The only question is, what are you going to do with it? Now let's talk about some of those decisions you've made. Do you remember when you chose to follow Frodo and Sam, pretending to be their guide while secretly planning to betray them? That was a choice, Smeagol. And deep down, I think you knew it was wrong. But you did it anyway, not because you wanted to hurt them, but because you were driven by fear and obsession with that wretched ring. You were afraid that without it, you'd lose yourself completely. But the truth is, the more you cling to it, the more you are losing yourself. But here's what you need to understand, Smeagol. You have the power to change the ending of your story. You're not bound to the mistakes of your past, unless you choose to be. Every time you chose to listen to Gollum's voice, you let that darker part of you take control. But every time you resisted, even for a moment, that was Smeagol fighting back. That was your better self trying to break through. You're not powerless here. You've just convinced yourself you are. And let's be honest, it's easier to say, "It wasn't my fault," isn't it? But that's not the truth. The truth is, you've had the power all along, just like Dorothy with those ruby slippers. But instead of clicking your heels together and heading toward the good, you've been taking every detour into the dark, sticky swamp of selfishness and deceit. And let's talk about those little tricks you've been playing. You know the ones I'm talking about. Acting all innocent, playing the victim, pretending to be the loyal servant while you plot in the shadows. Yeah, those were choices too, and they weren't the right ones. But here's what's fascinating, Smeagol. Even then, you had moments where you hesitated, where you thought about doing the right thing. That's where your hope lies. That hesitation, that's your heart trying to push you in the right direction. It's not too late to start making better decisions. The beauty of free will is that no matter how far you've strayed, you can always find your way back. It doesn't matter how many wrong turns you've taken. The path to good is always open. And the first step? It's as simple as saying, no more. No more scheming. No more lying. No more Gollum calling the shots. Remember, every great story has a moment of redemption. And let me tell you, Smeagol, you're due for one. The power is in your hands. You don't have to wait for someone else to save you. You can save yourself by making the right choices. You've had enough time living in the darkness. It's time to step into the light. Ah, the ring. My precious, you call it, over and over again like a broken record stuck on repeat. That little piece of gold has done a number on you, hasn't it? But here's the thing, Smeagol, it's not the ring's fault. It's your obsession with it. You see, the ring didn't make you do anything you weren't already willing to do. It just gave you a little nudge. The real issue here is your inability to let go. You've wrapped your entire existence around that tiny piece of metal, like it's the only thing that gives you purpose. But that's a lie. Let's be honest, Smeagol, the ring isn't your precious. It's your prison. You're a slave to it. You've let it dominate your every thought, your every action. And for what? A few fleeting moments of power, a sense of control. But look at what it's cost you. You've lost yourself. You've lost your identity. You've lost the ability to love, to trust, to feel joy. And for what? A piece of metal? You've convinced yourself that the ring is the key to your happiness, but in reality, it's been the source of your misery. It's poisoned your mind, Smeagol, turned you into someone you barely recognize. I know you feel like you can't live without it, but the truth is, you can't truly live with it either. It's time to let it go. I know. Easier said than done, right? But here's the thing about obsessions, Smeggle. They're just a distraction from what really matters. You've convinced yourself that the ring is the answer to all your problems, but deep down, you know it's not. It's just a crutch, something to cling to when you feel scared, or lost, or powerless. But the truth is, the power you're seeking has never been in the ring. It's been inside you all along. You've got to stop letting your greed control you. I get it. You've been alone for so long, you've convinced yourself that the only way to survive is to take, to hoard, to grab onto anything that feels like it might give you some sense of control. But that's a lie, too. Greed never satisfies. It just leaves you wanting more and more until there's nothing left but emptiness. You've spent so much time obsessing over that ring that you've forgotten how to live without it. But here's the good news. You can live without it. In fact, you'll be better off. The freedom you're seeking isn't in the ring. It's in letting go of it. Trust me, Smeagol. Freedom feels a lot better than obsession. It's lighter. It doesn't weigh you down. It's time to break free from that obsession. You've been a prisoner for too long. And you're not just a prisoner of the ring. You're a prisoner of your own mind. The ring is just a symbol of everything you've been holding on to. Fear, insecurity, the need for control. But you don't need any of that, Smeagol. What you need is peace. And peace doesn't come from clinging to things. It comes from letting them go.